with this new vision. This is what we seek to make Deaneries about in our diocese now. They are a local network of churches inspiring, influencing and leading mission and ministry. And almost every word there is significant. So obviously they are local to a locality, there is a focus, and they are a network. They are not about meetings. We really desperately wanted to get rid of this idea that you look at Deanery through the lens of synod or chapter. Synod and chapter may be a vehicle to fulfill the vision. They are not the reason we exist. So they're a network of living relationships amongst the churches, and together as a deanery, Deaneries can inspire mission and ministry. So our vision is that over time, simply being part of a deanery will encourage you in your mission and ministry. You will hear stories and be encouraged to get on with mission and ministry in your parishes and elsewhere. We believe that there's a place for the deanery to influence, to actually suggest things, to run ideas past parishes or areas in the deanery. So there's a place for proactive influencing. And sometimes there'll be a place for the deanery itself leading an initiative, actually deciding to take on board a particular challenge and lead it. So that's our vision. That's what we believe Deaneries are about in York. We're still exploring this, as we'll say later, in practice. But that's what we want to be about. And we decided to give ourselves, as we thought about it and broke it down, 3 particular purposes for the deanery. The first is about enabling mission. So first and foremost, the deanery exists to enable mission in that area. Number of ways in which that can be expressed, number of opportunities. We've heard from Pete, great example of so many opportunities that are just bigger than the parish, bigger than the benefice. So in Bridlington Deanery, on the coast, a lot of deprivation there, people move out, find their ways there, a lot of homelessness. So the deanery there at the moment is buying a house and using that house as a place to support and house homeless people. No individual parish or benefice could do that in Bridlington, but together, working with another local charity, they're delivering that. Some of these social justice issues we've been talking about are just bigger than the benefice. They're bigger than the parish, but the deanery can do it. Sometimes we're best placed to relate to wider organisations, the council, statutory bodies. In a world where nobody lives in boundaries anymore, we want to pioneer and reach networks of people. The deanery has a place. Ecumenically, there's often opportunities. And as a diocese, we're just in the middle of one of these SDF bids to reach 20s to 40s. Our assumption is now that the deaneries will be leading some of those outcomes of that work. Because actually, if you want to reach that age group, they're network people very often. They live and move in their beings in terms of the way they relate. So the deanery, we're assuming, will deliver some of that. That's the first of our purposes. The second is that we will be resourcing ministry. What does that look like? Again, here's just some of the ways in which that might happen. York's big, as I say. If you want to travel to York, where a lot of our training happens, it's about an hour's drive from where most people live. If you sort of draw an arc around from Middlesbrough down to Hull, and you're taking all the coastal areas, and that's where actually most of the people live across that arc, you're at least an hour's drive. Now, getting people to go to York is therefore quite a problem. We want to move training into deaneries, not just with the training team coming and doing it there, but actually them enabling local people that know the context to deliver it there. We've got increasing emphasis in the diocese on people in poverty. That raises all manner of issues about the way in which we form and train and equip and enable local people. And it's often the people living there that know best how to do that. So a big shift, and we're still working on that if I'm honest, but a big shift is to try to make training accessible locally. Again, moving through quickly, sharing visions and stories. We want people to be doing that naturally. Sharing resources. So actually, if you set up a messy church and it goes really well, why don't you go and share that learning with the next door parish? You know, we just don't naturally do that. We want to encourage a culture where the parishes in a deanery naturally share what they're doing. Sharing money. We've had examples of that in Scarborough Deanery, where they set up a pioneer minister, and the deanery had been contributing to the finance of that. So actually giving money in those sorts of ways, sharing ideas, and assisting with our free will offer system, which is parish share. We do it slightly differently where we are. And our third purpose is supporting relationships. Prayer and worship is top of that list, because actually we want to be able to come together and support each other in prayer, and giving people an experience sometimes of worship that is bigger than what they're experiencing Sunday by Sunday. Gathering parish officers. Again, we're just beginning to toy with the idea of, you know, how do we gather treasurers together, for instance, to help them, equip them. Or maybe we can have a treasury champion in a deanery that does that, that helps to share learning, to share the experience that some parishes have to others. What does it mean to have healthy forums for licensed and authorised ministers? I haven't called it chapter, but that will be one expression of it. But actually in some of our deaneries we're discovering it's better for lay ministers and clergy to meet together, because actually they're so small in some places, the numbers, it works best together. In other places that may not be the case. But when do our readers gather? What is the best place? Maybe the deanery is the best place for that. We have something called RPAs, Recognised Pastoral Assistants. How do we support them? Again, the deanery is the best place for that. And the last thing, which we've toyed with in a couple of places, is sort of actually having subgroups, recognising that some of the deaneries either are too big to be able to constantly meet as one whole. So in Hull, we have 3 separate clergy chapters, actually, although we have one deanery synod and one deanery. In Scarborough, they worked out that actually it just works best as a deanery to support each other in 3 areas. So there's a northern group, there's the central churches that work together and have a lot in common, and then there's the southern area where they're more villagey and rural, so they gather together. So again, proactively deciding that we'll work together in subgroups within it all. And you've got another change of voice coming in a moment. A new vision, 3 purposes, and we ask people to bring it all together in a deanery mission and ministry plan. Now, in a former life, I got very involved in mission action planning. And I know that sometimes when you talk about plans, some people want something really big and complicated and detailed. And for some places, that's a good thing. I'm not necessarily against that, actually. But what I learned by being involved with mission action planning is that in a lot of places, that really doesn't work. They just can't cope with the complexity of that. And we've taken that view as we looked at our deaneries in the way we asked them to do this. So our description of how to do a plan is all on one side of A4. And in effect, what we say to deaneries is, these are the outputs at the end we want you to describe. How you get there, we don't care. So work together. Find out what works best where you are, the best way of creating that plan. But please produce it so it describes how you're going to get from where you are now to fulfill the vision and meet those 3 particular purposes. So that's a bit from me. I'm going to pause now, you'll be glad to know, and we're going to hear a local story from Jackie, who's the area dean in Hart Hill. That's one of those rural bits in the middle of my patch. And Jackie's just going to come and say 5 minutes or so how that's worked out for her and her team where she is in rural East Yorkshire.
Been through a time of challenge, I think it's the best way of putting it. I was impressed to hear about the 3 stipendiary clergy in Hart Hill. Whew, that was an aspiration. For quite a time, there was 1 full-time self-supporting minister, 1 full-time House for Duty minister, and then anybody else who would come and help us. But now we have got 3 posts for full-time clergy as well. But do you know what? It was the best thing that could happen to Hart Hill. Because what happened was we had to stop, we had to step back, and we had to say, what is Deanery for? And what a revelation. We discovered that the Deanery can be the powerhouse